We are live. Today is March 29th, 2022. Weekly Wednesday show. And Cal is busy setting up announcements, but we got announcer rates. Early bird in the Discord. So let's see. YouTube is still banned, right?
Yep. I did solve the last week we didn't have Facebook either, but I fixed that, so we're good.
Okay. Let's log in over there.
So we are on Twitter, Facebook, Discord. That's what we got left.
Okay. What about Telegram? Are you on Telegram?
We are not live on Telegram, but we can take questions if anyone asks them there.
Okay. Does Telegram have a live? I don't know.
I actually just saw that in Restream. I've never looked into how to do it though. So they must have some sort of live.
I would think. I know they have like voice chats, but I don't know if it's actually, I've never seen an actual streaming thing, but I don't use Telegram. So. Hard to say.
On Discord.
So let's go to the LeoFinance Facebook group. See what's happening there. Let's see if that's live. Theoretically, none of this should make it into a recording, but you know. Live beta. Everything is in live beta. Okay, yes. Cal Leo is live now. Let's see if we can play that. But mute the actual window.
I don't know how my audio is sounding on Discord.
I think we're all good. We are live. Okay. So it's been a week. The PolyCUB vault continues to grow. Price has been up and down a bit lately. So and Kat has been shilling the Leo merch amongst the wild world of, what would you call them? Just business enthusiasts. Kat is actually at practically lost his voice pitching Leo to Miami.
Yes, all the people, all the 10x.
All the people.
It's good when you're the quote unquote crypto guy in a room full of business and real estate investors, because they all want crypto, and then somehow that gives you some kind of credibility. So really important people that would never talk to you otherwise are like, hey, what's up? I'm just like, oh, how are you?
Yeah, I mean, it's a whole new thing, and people are finally, like, what we thought would happen like 5-10 years ago is finally happening now. But people want in. You know, there's nothing is as good as of advertising as making a bunch of people billionaires. So
Facts.
you know, we got the twins from Gemini. We got random hodlers.
And I mean, you know, you mentioned the twins. They started an exchange, and that's where it's at. Like, I met a couple guys who are basically baller marketers. I mean, they were marketing crypto on Facebook back when it was banned. They basically figured out a way to like break the algorithm, and they blew up a few projects. But now they're partner with some people. They're launched their own exchange, and I'm definitely going to talk to them about that. But I think they might be able to help get the LeoFinance word out even more.
Yeah, that'd be great. I think you got to be nuts to start an exchange these days, but
I agree. So, but they wanted to talk to me about even like, you know, doing spots in terms of, you know, promoting and sharing their exchange. So it's like, sure, let's have a conversation. I'm not too proud to show on Discord. I mean, on TikTok.
Absolutely. We was saying we haven't heard from Cal yet.
Oh, I may not
hello to all
have
the people.
spoken anything. Hello, people. I'm here.
Hello to all the people. We passed 10 million
Hello, everybody.
TVL on PolyCUB.
Oh shit.
Uh,
When did
Cal-
that happen?
I think it was yesterday or the day before.
Yeah,
That's impressive considering the price has been going lower the last few days. So that means a good chunk of money came in.
That's probably why the price has gone lower. People are coming into the farms or into the kingdoms and selling X PolyCUB and more selling PolyCUB, which is dumping everything into X Poly. We're up to 18x, 18.5, something like that. It's an interesting time. So just before we came on stream, Cal dropped some links in Discord about Cointelegraph, I think it was.
yep.
Yep. So why don't you walk us through what's going on there?
Yeah, so we've been working with Cointelegraph, CoinDesk, Bitcoin.com, a bunch of different ones, basically just to kind of organize the way that this marketing message is going out. And a big way that it went out is obviously, right after launch, we did the first round of PRs, and that was just kind of to introduce PolyCUB and start talking about essentially what it is and why we launched it and the mission of building, the first ever, sustainable DeFi platform. So that was kind of like that first, because we basically have a few different marketing messages, and the first one was just to introduce everything. So this is like the second marketing message, and I think you have to calendarize these weeks. And the calendarize with a K, because the second week of marketing is a little bit longer than a week. So essentially we have this second round of PRs going out, and yeah, so Cointelegraph is kind of like the kickstart of this second round of PRs. I think there's probably about 40 or 50-ish firms that are going to have PRs, and they all have a version of this one. So this is, if you open, I'll drop this in the chat. If you open this PR, it's going to be, very similar on the other ones. But essentially it talks about PolyCUB and it talks about the future of what we're building. So it kind of focuses more on the roadmap. And yeah, so it's, the interesting thing about PolyCUB, and I think it's being missed in the market, there's many sayings for how the market can stay irrational longer than you can stay solvent, and all sorts of other sayings about how the market misprices things. So I think with PolyCUB, we're seeing essentially a mispricing of what, sorry, one second.
Sounded like some dog in the background or something.
People making ruckus.
Yeah. Just looking through I have not seen this release before, because he literally dropped it on the Discord like 2 minutes before we went live. But just scanning through, saying emerging mechanics and several other successful projects while running thousands of Monte Carlo simulations to create the ideal scenario for yield optimization of the Polygon network. It's quite a sentence. PolyCUB achieves what few, if any, other projects have achieved before: a long-term, deflationary, and self-sustainable DeFi ecosystem that maximizes yield generation for user assets. That is quite a mouthful. But yeah, that is something that has not been done. Every other yield farm out there has died one way or another.
Yeah, I mean, they're basically price is designed to go to zero.
Yeah. Yes. And
let me I'm having fun in Discord chat. I'm shilling.
Just show them the shirt. There you go. So you made that yourself, right?
I will not confirm or deny that I made this shirt myself. Well, I will say this, that there will be a way to buy LeoFinance merch, mainly t-shirts, available to the masses in the next day or so. Sadly, you have to use fiat dollars.
See, I'm going a hat. I'm much more into hats than into shirts.
I could possibly look into my sources to see if they can produce the hat.
Okay. That'd be good, because
but
I'd rather just cover my hair than
I wonder, a hat would probably, I wonder if LeoFinance, like, this might be too much for a hat. Maybe
Well,
just the
maybe just the
logo,
logo.
just the logo instead. I mean, you could do the whole thing. So it's just gonna be smaller.
Yeah, or you could rearrange it. Is Morty here? No, Morty's not.
No, Morty's not here.
Did you get some custom work done?
That's why I was waiting. I was waiting for more of a crowd to come in before I started doing my fashion show.
Yeah.
LeoFinance.
Yeah.
The
So
one I like the one in gray I have better, but black
there's-
always works.
there's another one. But yeah, just I guess the PR is mostly talking about how, the self-sustainable. So, we've seen the price over the last week. I haven't been tracking that closely, but down from 90 cents to 50 cents, something like that.
Yeah, I know. Put it this way, I like remember Thursday night I looked, and then I went down to Miami Friday morning, and then come like Monday, I was like, what the hell happened while I was gone? I think it was at like 69 when I left, and then it's at 50. Actually it's 49 as of this morning.
Right. So, what's interesting is that, yes, I mean, if you're holding liquid PolyCUB, then that's rough. But if you're in the X PolyCUB vault, it's barely changed. I've been looking at my stake, and I update my spreadsheet, once a day or once every other day, and it hasn't moved much. So it's interesting how the people who are dumping PolyCUB and paying the forfeit fees are compensating the people in the X PolyCUB vault. I mean, it's not perfect, but it's pretty close. And this is before we even have the bonds live. So,
And that's like the thing. I wish I had more of a weighting. Like I have obviously X PolyCUB as part of my overall portfolio on the platform, but it's not nearly high enough a percentage. I also said I was going to stop adding to it once we hit a 15 ratio, but I put my airdrop into it this morning. I just keep plowing my airdrop into it at this point. The last big buy I did was when we were at, I think, 12. But since then it's just airdrops. So it is what it is.
Yeah.
But so, what's funny is that, and this is like indirectly about PolyCUB. So when I was at that 10X conference, I actually ran into a guy that I know that is a high-end real estate broker and has some like side businesses where he makes like, money from like credit card transactions, things like that. But anyway, type of dude that's got all the back end stuff. And then he's just like, why don't we do a fund? He's just like, I got, a company that handles all the back end stuff, blah, blah, blah. He's like, we can literally just test pilot it. We'll both, spend a couple $1,000 to start it soup to nuts, close it, like literally do a beta test. I was, that's actually not a bad idea at all. Because yeah, I'm out there like shilling LeoFinance and PolyCUB and all that. But what's probably the best way for me to help the platform is if I just open this fund and now I have millions of dollars that I'm going to put on the Cub and PolyCUB platforms. And I can do that in a way shorter time. And I don't have to be out there, wearing merch and shilling.
Yeah.
So, I mean, don't get me wrong. I like, the socializing, but I think that might be a better direct impact. So there's just more and more things that the universe is like putting in front of me where it just makes sense to do the fund. Because I think not only would it be more helpful to, LeoFinance in a whole, but then also it's just more organized for me. And I don't have to be out there shilling all the time.
Absolutely. And I see we have Yaba in the audience on the Discord. So because of that, I will also shill. I do have a fund for Splinterlands assets.
This is true. Yes. I actually
we-
mentioned that to the guys, like Steve and the guys that were at the event also. I was like, do you guys know that Neil has a Splinterlands fund?
Yeah. So,
tell me more.
Well, it's, for the real estate guys, it's very, very similar to every other real estate syndication. Limited partners, they come in, they put up capital. General partner, which is me and Venev, and we come in and we deploy that capital into the Splinterlands game ecosystem. Primarily, buying cards and renting them out, but very selectively rather than just a broad thing. And the interesting thing that we found out is that so Splinterlands has its own dynamics, and we are slowly deploying capital into it. We don't want to do it all at once because the market liquidities, it won't support that. in an advantageous way. So while we are waiting to deploy over the next however long, we're actually keeping our dry powder in PolyCUB and on the stable farms.
Oh, wow.
So it is it's all coming together basically.
I mean, there's a conversation for offline, so we don't have to get into it.
Secrets.
Because I'm curious about as far as like the reporting end of that, whether you're like if you're in a position where you're doing quarterly distributions, things like that, it's like you don't have you have a corporate Coinbase account, let's say, and like money goes into there and then it goes from there. But then it's on like just decentralized wallets. It's just like, well, how is that? I don't know. It's like, how do you like report that in terms of to your investor? I don't know. That's the only thing I'm like confused about.
Yeah,
It's
well,
like-
I mean, we'll have bookkeeping.
You can't like
stuff.
show them where their money is. I guess you show a wallet address.
Well, I mean, if you invest into Apple, do they show you like which bank accounts hold stuff? No, they just give you a report.
I guess that's true. I mean, all people care about is their shares sitting on, whatever, Charles Schwab.
Yeah.
Makes sense.
So that is a project that's been in the works for a long time. Because it's all legal stuff. It's all KYC. It's all accredited. So the good deals are only for the rich people, and the getting the legal work set up took forever. But now we're finally open and taking deposits, and the not in crypto. Good deals are forever. That's true. I'm talking about in TradFi. The good deals are restricted for the rich people. But this audience, anybody who wants, if you refer somebody who ends up investing, we do pay out a share of our management fees, to you. So that's like an ongoing revenue stream. So if you have some whale friends who want to get exposure to play to earn gaming DeFi, then let me know. It might be worth
You
it.
did. So what did you do? Like typical syndication paperwork in terms of the legal end?
Yep.
Fun.
Yep. And then so it's the subscription agreement and then LPs and then
Interesting. Maybe I'll ping you about who you use depending on what your cost was. I've gotten a few different contacts and the costs definitely vary.
yeah, costs vary. With anything with the lawyers, it's always going to depend on exactly how you're setting things up because it changes the complexity of things and that changes their fees. But I'll go ahead and tell you, we paid 10 grand in legal.
That's been a common number for the syndication stuff.
Yeah.
So that's why syndication is also better because when you go like the hedge fund route, I think it actually becomes more than that because you got more going on.
Yeah.
At least that's the vibe I've gotten from the just one or two hedge funds people I've talked to.
Yep. So it's bringing it all together. We got legacy people coming in. Our people right now are actually all real estate guys because they understand the structure really well because it's like I said, it's a standard thing.
I think and it makes sense right now as long as they keep classifying crypto as property, then syndication route makes total sense.
Yeah.
Are you doing like a typical real estate syndication where you're doing like specific interval distributions and things like that?
Yeah, we're doing quarterlies.
Quarterlies. Nice.
And then so we're bringing in TradFi people. We're keeping them idle in PolyCUB ecosystem and then deploying into Spoonard's ecosystem. So even though they don't know it, they're exposing to like the whole gamut of DeFi.
The moral of the story is that my yields on the stable pool are lower because of you.
Oh, maybe a little bit.
Because of you and your fund. It's all right. I'll end up pushing them down too with the fund.
Yeah, and Yevin's talking about the rewards reductions in PolyCUB. So this is a thing that is starting to bite, starting to feel it in PolyCUB. We're down to, what are we down to, 2 now?
2, yep.
So 2 PolyCUB per block down from 5 on launch day. So we're down to 40% of the emissions. That's going to be cut again on Friday down to 1. And then from there, it's going monthly
Right.
from 1 to a half to a quarter. So
Yeah,
it's
and
one for a while.
yeah, and I think a big factor that people miss on that is that, you know, right now there's all this PolyCUB being emitted and flooding the market. Like it's which is it per day? Let's see. It is about it's roughly 86,000 PolyCUB a day, I think, right now. That is basically emitted per block. So at those figures, I think what's interesting is that that's going to go down to 43,000. And I actually think, let me see here if I can pull it. Taskmaster posted this chart that I guess he said that 1Alpha made, I think, which basically tracks the emissions rate of PolyCUB and how it's changing over time. So right now we're in March 29th. His last one was March 26th, which is week 3. So that's 872,000 new PolyCUB a week is created. And then next week that drops down to 620,000 a week. That doesn't actually make sense. He must be including airdrops or something in there too. Or no, he starts it on week 5. Okay. So we're at 620,000 a week right now, and we'll drop down to 368,000 a week after that. And I haven't checked these numbers, but I'm pretty sure they're right. But basically what I think is interesting is that right now we've got this huge emissions rate, and there's so many new PolyCUBs entering the market every single day. And, you know, what happens when that is a lot lower. And, you know, I think we saw some ridiculous volatility in the first 1 and 2 weeks. And then obviously the volatility is reduced in the last couple of weeks. So in the last week compared to those weeks. So it's, I'm kind of interested to see what happens after this next reduction, especially because people will know that then the one after that will be a month later. So whatever yields we end up at after this next halvening is going to be interesting, because we'll sit there for a while. But I think the factor that a lot of people miss is that you know, once the emissions rate is reduced in half and we see half as much PolyCUB basically entering the market and being sold every single day, I think, you know, we could see some positive things happen to the price, which obviously affects Kingdom's yield, because Kingdom's yield is factoring in the value of PolyCUB versus the value of the Kingdom's assets. So kind of considering that the whole crypto market is up right now, and then the PolyCUB price is down in the last week, you know, yields have been affected by that pretty heavily. So if we see something interesting happen after this next halvening, it's going to be fun to watch the yields go back up, even though the emissions themselves are lower. So a couple of things I'm watching are like bonding and protocol liquidity, and how that is all factoring into this dropping emissions rate. Because obviously we've essentially, this next week is kind of a critical week because we're exiting the launch phase and entering in the sustainability phase. So yeah, I don't know. What are your guys' opinions about where we're at in the emissions schedule, and if you've taken a look at this chart from 1Alpha?
I haven't seen this particular chart before, but yeah, I've been, you know, monitoring the emissions. You know, it's distribution time, so this is the time to get your PolyCUB position in place. And so I've been, so, you know, in the first days I took advantage of a lot of the volatility. You know, I did some decent trading, and I racked up a whole giant bag of PolyCUB inside the XPoly vault. And now I'm just you know, staking, you know, taking my farmer, my Kingdom rewards and my airdrop, and just piling them all into XPolyCUB. And then when bonding, sir.
Soon.
You mentioned it in your list there, and last week you said you thought it was going to be last week.
Yeah.
You got a little preview post on Leo. You had a little teaser of the UI and stuff. So,
yeah, I released the UI and talked about, you know, more of the mechanics behind bonding. I want to see a little bit more testing happen before we release it. I just want to make sure that the rollout is smooth on that end. Last thing I want is a non-smooth. The last thing I want is a rough rollout of bonding.
Okay, that's fair.
But I think
Do you have
we're.
any?
What's that?
Do you have any projections as to when that'll be?
Soon,
Soon.
somewhere in the Sooniverse. Yeah, I think. Yeah, I hate to say again that I think it'll be this week, but I think it'll be this week.
Let me ask a different version of the same question. Once bonds are live on PolyCUB, how long do you think it'll be from there to bonds being live on CUB DeFi?
Probably not very long, because essentially it's all just forkable backwards, right? So it's as soon as we're confident that everything's working properly on the PolyCUB bonds, and we can just do CUB bonds whenever we want. So I would say we would be talking weeks. So in terms of time frame, we'd be talking weeks.
Right. These are calendar weeks or actually?
these are let's just say calendar weeks, just to be safe.
Okay. All right. What about you, Mitch? What do you think about the different phases that we're going through here with PolyCUB?
I mean, to be honest with you, I'm not exactly going to probably be, sounds like a cheerleader for bonding. I'm more so excited about the collateralization lending because, like, I don't know, I could be missing something, but for me, it's like I look at bonding as a way for me to buy PolyCUB at a discount.
Right. Well, that
And
actually, so yeah, I was just asking for user of the platform, what's the purpose or value of buying bonds? Is it just a hope to get PolyCUB at a discount?
So and maybe, you guys can, add to it. So from my simple mind, it's just, hey, I can get PolyCUB at a discount, but I'm kind of already done with my acquisition, phase. So I don't know when I'll be bonding. Maybe I'll do it if I see, a nice discount and I'm just like, sweet, I'm gonna just get it cheap and then I can do whatever I'm going to do with it, speculate, or just decide to, stake more. But
Well, the
yeah.
thing about bonding to remember is that it's more like a trading mechanic than anything else. So, I would view it a lot differently than accumulating. Obviously, some people would use it to accumulate, because you would say, okay, I can go out and buy PolyCUB on the open market right now, or I can look at the bonds real quick and see what the discounted rate is. The thing about the discounted rate is that it has to factor in the APY that you would essentially be missing out on over the 7 days, and obviously that'll be a lot of variables to make spreadsheet. But the important thing about bonding is that it is essentially a trading mechanism, like, very similar to like an HBD mechanism, where if you look at HBD in certain moments, and you can basically convert it on the Hive blockchain over a 3.5 day period. And some people have run the math in different scenarios and can basically pull out a few points on each trade when they convert some HBD. So bonding is kind of a similar mechanic where, yeah, you could use it to accumulate more PolyCUB, or you could use it on a short-term trade and essentially just make a couple percentage points, and it's just a mechanic that you can basically leverage. And the value there is that the user might make a few percent, and then the protocol is obviously exchanging that PolyCUB back to the market for the whatever bonds it has on there. So the higher that protocol liquidity, the better the platform is. So I think a lot of people have missed the idea that if you look at the market cap of PolyCUB right now, it's about just over 2 million. And so let's say that protocol and liquidity is $1 million or $2 million. It's pretty crazy to think about that. Let's just say that the protocol liquidity is 2 million. And at this current PolyCUB price, obviously with the emissions rate, it changes over time, but it's kind of interesting to think that the risk-free value would actually be the current price right now, which is 49 cents. So obviously that'll change as the supply changes, but I think it's going to be interesting to start calculating risk-free value. And I showed a little teaser of that protocol liquidity page, and we're going to be adding a lot of basically tracking tracking statistics on there for risk-free value and essentially what that protocol and liquidity is doing.
Yeah. You know, as far as value to the user, you know, I mean, you just have to make your own investment decisions as far as like, you know, is trading this LP asset worth the stream of PolyCUB over the next, you know, 5-7 days, whatever it is, you know, at the given numbers. But the as far as I understand, correct me if I'm wrong, Cal, the goal of the whole thing is to incentivize, you know, incentivize users to sell their LP assets to the protocol. And then the protocol does two things with it. One is that if it's a PolyCUB LP, then you are increasing stability by deepening liquidity. And if it's a non-PolyCUB LP, then you are increasing, you know, outside earnings coming into the platform, and then, you know, supporting the token buybacks at that when that phase kicks in.
Right.
So it's all a way to incentivize the user to kickstart that whole process. And you know, Howzat was asking, you know, how will emissions rates affect APR for staking PolyCUB? You know, it's all gonna be tied together, right? So emissions rates are dropping, bond rates or bonds are going live here soon, and you know, that's all going to affect the APR of everything, right? Because the APRs are defined by how much PolyCUB you're getting, so emissions rate goes in there, but also how much those PolyCUB are worth. And you know, theoretically, you know, assuming that the bonding goes well, and then it incentivizes people, and then that starts to build that whole protocol and liquidity process, then that should support the price, even though the emissions are lower. So APRs will change.
Yeah, it's I mean, I think what we're watching play out right now is the first kind of like, I've not seen a DeFi platform attempt what we're trying to do yet, which is essentially just to create a platform where you can actually have sustainable yield that is predictable and the native token is deflationary over time, and obviously, you know, when you combine that protocol liquidity with this emissions rate that is just drying up over the next couple of months, I think it's just the first in a long line of a new wave of what can be done with yield optimizers on different blockchains. So Wu was saying focus on demand and not scarcity. Yeah, it's definitely, and I put up a post on the @LeoFinance account like 2 or 3 days ago where I talked about utility and scarcity. So if you just have scarcity, like obviously you can have a 1 of 1, and if nobody wants it, then it's not worth anything. So scarcity on its own is worthless. When you combine scarcity with utility, that's where you get value. So you look at like Bitcoin, and you've got scarcity, but then you've also got the utility of, you know, permissionless, a permissionless store of value and you know, remittances and all sorts of other use cases for Bitcoin, and that's where you get the value. That there's scarcity, but then there's also things that you can do with it. So there's a reason why people want to buy it. With PolyCUB, that's essentially what we're building, just in a slightly different way, which is that we've got that scarcity, and that's being built through that dropping emissions rate. So there's only going to be about 7 million PolyCUB that are ever created. And then if we can combine enough utility with that scarcity, that's where you get you know, a scenario where PolyCUB actually increases in price over time, similar to Bitcoin, you know, over long time frames. And the utility will be, and I put it in that post, the utility will be driven in a lot of different ways, but essentially, you know, imagine a few months from now where you're holding X PolyCUB, and it's an extremely scarce asset, and you're earning, you know, 30 to 50% APY on it sustainably, and then on top of that, you can collateralize it and take a loan against it, and essentially you have a self-paying loan against your X PolyCUB stake. And then I talked about this as well, that we've basically been building the next stage after lending, which is, you know, some other utility features. One of them is that essentially if you're holding an anchor on Terra is essentially doing this as well. coming up with basically this variable emissions rate. So it's it's not an equal emissions rate basically for everyone who's staking on kingdoms. And it's basically variable depending on how much PolyCUB you have staked. So let's say you've got $100,000 in PolyCUB kingdoms. When we release this feature, say July, August timeframe, essentially the earnings rate that you have, if you have no PolyCUB staked, it will be lower than if you have PolyCUB staked. And there's going to be a percentage of your kingdom stake that needs to be PolyCUB that will essentially get you that full stake. And this is a similar model to what like Curve has and a few other platforms.
Yeah. So on Curve, that's where I first got into DeFi. You have their CRV token, and they have variable rewards for each pool, depending on how much locked CRV you have put in. And the locks are not like with XPolyCUB where you can redeem it whenever you want. It's locks for a time period. So like I have 4-year locked CRV, which I'm now into year 2 of. So I have like 2 3/4 of a year left before those get unlocked. But when I put those in, I just kind of mentally said, okay, I'm never getting these tokens back because in 4 years is like eternity in crypto. But I made I did the math. I was like, well, even so, if I lose this entirely, it's still worth it because of the increase in yield on these particular farms that I was in. So it'll be interesting to see how that all works. We got a bunch of questions though regarding all that. So one was, you mentioned HBD. Is PolyCUB bonding, can that be compared to HBD savings where you're earning 12%?
No, so that would be HBD savings is different. I would compare it more to HBD conversions if you had to compare it. Obviously, it's not the same, but if you had to compare it to something, that's kind of where I go for Hive people that you could compare it to HBD conversions, just because it's basically a fixed window of time. So for HBD conversions, it's 3.5 days. And if you time it correctly, you can usually crank out a few percentage ROI on HBD conversions. So that's kind of how I would compare bonding to that, because I think, and obviously this is speculation, but I think the way that bonding is going to play out is that it's going to be a low positive percent on staking assets into the bonds. So you might make 3%, you might make 7%, and obviously that's all based on competition over the bonds. But that's kind of how I expect that to play out. So I think bonding is going to be used more like a trading mechanic to crank out some percentages. And if you want to accumulate PolyCUB, you'll kind of do it through bonds, if just kind of depending on obviously the market dynamics, because there's a maximum at any given time that you can bond. So some people have basically said there's been a question about bonds that if you can buy PolyCUB at a discount through a bond, why would you buy it on the market? That is true if you imagine that there's unlimited PolyCUB available in the bonds, but the thing is there isn't an unlimited amount of PolyCUB in the bonds. So you may be able to buy 1,000 PolyCUB through the bonds before the ROI starts to dip negative, and if that happens, then obviously you'd rather buy it on the market. So it's kind of like this self-correcting process where if so many people buy bonds because they want to buy PolyCUB, that it starts to drive the bonds to a negative ROI, then people will start buying PolyCUB on the market, which will drive up the price of PolyCUB, which will make the bonds a little bit more profitable. So it kind of self-corrects itself.
And you had mentioned you said, imagine that future scenario where you're in XPolyCUB and it's earning, 30-50%. Where does the yield come from after the emissions dry up?
Yeah, so that 30 to 50% is based on some math that I've basically run and some scenarios that we've mapped out, as a team to kind of figure out where this stuff is going to end up. If you basically consider certain levels of protocol liquidity, and certain bonding rates and APYs. So, and then obviously the PolyCUB price starts to take a factor in Kingdom's yield and other things. But essentially that 30 to 50% in the XPolyCUB stake is based on what we expect the protocol liquidity to be buying back from the market and deploying into the liquidity pools. And then it also it also factors in a certain amount of early harvesting claims. So XPolyCUB basically earns a percentage of the emissions rate plus the 100% of the 50% early harvesting penalties. So basically there's a flow of PolyCUB into that vault from the emissions rate. And then on top of that, you have those bigger hits of anyone who wants instant liquidity on their harvest basically has to pay that 50% penalty to all XPolyCUB stakeholders. So when you factor in how much of that protocol liquidity is going to be buying and deploying into the liquidity pool every day, and compare it to how much PolyCUB is expected to be staked in XPolyCUB, that's kind of where we came up with the 30 to 50% base APY over the long run. Yeah, so Yawapi Matt saying when emissions go to zero, that's from the protocol liquidity. So protocol liquidity will buy PolyCUB daily on the market and deploy it into the daily liquidity pool. So think of it as the emissions rate right now is deploying constant PolyCUB into that pool every single day. And once the emissions rate dry up, essentially they start to get closer and closer to zero over the next couple months. When they start getting to near zero, that's when the protocol liquidity starts to kick in and buy PolyCUB every single day. So you've basically got this stream of PolyCUB into the daily LP incentive pool from emissions. And then once that ends, then you've got a new stream of PolyCUB that's entering that pool from the protocol liquidity buying PolyCUB every single day. So it creates constant buy demand on PolyCUB and essentially just drops it into that pool. Yeah, it's purchased from the market, which is kind of, if you map this out, and this is where we kind of got into the weeds on the 90-day harvesting rates and everything when we initially designed PolyCUB. But if you kind of map this out, it's really interesting because basically what the protocol liquidity is doing is going out and buying PolyCUB every single day on the market, and then it's dropping it in the LP incentive pool, and that's for the kingdoms, the farms, and XPolyCUB. So on the kingdoms and farms, they're subject to that 90-day harvesting unlock period. So what's kind of interesting, if you assume, like, let's just say, just to make it easy, if you assume that 100% of PolyCUB that is earned through harvesting on farms and kingdoms, 100% of those earnings are waiting the 90-day period out. Essentially, then what the protocol liquidity is doing is buying PolyCUB every single day and locking it for 90 days. Because you're dropping it into that LP incentive pool, and those LPs aren't withdrawing it right away. So you're just locking up more and more PolyCUB that can't be unlocked for another 90 days. So that's obviously an interesting scenario, but then you have to imagine that obviously there's more variables. Like some people are going to early harvest, and obviously that's going to lead back into XPolyCUB. But what I think what is going to be fun to watch play out is how much that protocol liquidity is able to buy every single day, and what the sustainable levels of PolyCUB are, and then obviously where those yields even out at for kingdoms. The entire point of PolyCUB is so that our community can go out to different blockchains and yield optimize. So like if you've got, like, I think everyone in Leo has some amount of Bitcoin, some amount of Ethereum, some amount of stable coins, and we all want to pool it on different platforms and maximize our yield. So the point of PolyCUB is multifold, but one major thing is that we would be able to go out and go to different blockchains and stake our assets and earn yield in a sustainable and trustable environment. And that's what PolyCUB is about. And then obviously you have the other missions of PolyCUB, like creating a Leo pool that is incentivized so that we can build liquidity for Leo Bridge. So all this stuff just kind of comes into play, but I think that yield question gets very interesting come July timeframe.
So about July, my free BTC is saying that so the plan is, for now, Binance is going to go live, but the protocol on liquidity will not be buying PolyCUB off the market for another couple months.
Right.
So what is it doing until then? Why is there different dates? Why does it not just kick in automatically? So yeah, what's the story with that?
Yeah, so essentially what we've decided with the protocol and liquidity is that it will kick in once those emissions rates start to get closer to zero. And part of the reason for that is that the protocol liquidity is just going to compound on itself up until that point. And it's basically going to allow time for the protocol liquidity to start to kickstart all the bonding and basically bolster its initial treasury. And then obviously once because there isn't really, it's all kind of based on the need for the protocol liquidity. So, right now we have high emissions rate and there's plenty of yield on the platform. We have no need to be buying PolyCUB and adding to that APY essentially. When that need starts to kick in, like I said, around the, July-ish timeframe, that's when the protocol liquidity starts to essentially kick in and bolster the yield.
And one thing I've been wondering is, so PolyCUB going through this halvening thing, at what point does it actually just fully stop?
Yeah, that's a good question. So Mr. Tats asked when Curve Kingdoms start compounding. They already are, if you check your position. They have been for, I think, a little over a week now. We fixed the server and we're looking good. But I'm pulling up this chart that One Alpha made. So if you look at, and I dropped it in chat if anyone wants to scroll up to that. I obviously haven't checked his numbers against the ones that I've got, but I think they're, just at a glance, they're accurate. When you look at this, so we're in week 4 right now. Technically, when week 5 starts, that's when we hit the last weekly halvening. So that'll bring us, right now we're at 620,000 new PolyCUB per week. Week 5 will be at 368,000 per week. And then it'll drop a month after that. So then week 9, we drop down to 192,000. And then obviously we keep dropping from there. So eventually you see we get out to like I said, like that July timeframe, we're looking at like 15,000 PolyCUB a week, which is obviously very low compared to where we're at now.
Right. Yes, low. But so does it just keep happening every month, or is there an actual zero point?
It just keeps happening every single month until it basically reaches fractions of PolyCUB. So yeah, because I mean, if you look out, and I don't know if this is right, but if you look out at his chart, week 53, so essentially a year after launch, it's 62 PolyCUB a week.
Right. Which is practically zero. Yeah. I just thought I had heard you say at some point that it was actually turning off, but I might be misremembering that. Let's see what else we got going on here. Kind of all different stuff. Yeah, this chat's saying didn't see the announcement about it getting fixed. Not all fixes are announced, I will tell you that.
Yeah,
Stuff just happens.
Some of those smaller bug fixes, we just kind of do them. We don't always announce.
Yeah. Let's see. Trying to understand this comment from How's That. PolyCUB harvesting penalty, 50% harvest claims, base APY. I think he was answering somebody else. Yeah, so like I said last week, as of a week or two ago, 90% of harvests were paying the forfeit fee. And as a result of that, 61% of all PolyCUB emissions were hitting the ex-PolyCUB vault, which is kind of an incredible number. So, stake early, stake often, right? And we are in the last week or two of the massive distribution phase. So if you haven't gotten your position in, you might want to. Yeah.
Now is the best time to plant a tree was yesterday. Second best time is now.
Yep. Pretty much. I think I'm still number 2 in the ex-PolyCUB holdings. But there's been some competition lately. All of Mitch's friends coming in, throwing their whale money around.
Yeah, Walter's got a lot. I didn't realize that. He posted on Twitter. He's been accumulating.
Yeah.
He went all in. He's literally exclusively an ex-PolyCUB right now.
That's all of his crypto, or
No, just in terms of what he has on PolyCUB.
Oh, okay.
I don't think he has any farms or like whatever that was 2 weeks ago. He was just like, he's like, ex-PolyCUB is the play. And just flipped everything into it. Anything that he had on PolyCUB went into X PolyCUB,
That
which
is the move.
I mean, I don't
That's
even
why
know
we
if
need
it-
bots, because the liquidity pools aren't deep enough.
yeah. I'm in 2 farms, 3 kingdoms, and X Poly because that's what I do. I take one for the team and make sure I got some liquidity provided.
So Cal just dropped the link. Why would anyone buy PolyCUB 1 year from now?
Yeah. So
So
sorry, I've seen this question a lot, and then how's that just basically mentioned, how are you guys working to draw demand for buying PolyCUB? So I basically broke out this tweet storm to answer all these questions that I kept seeing, all the wins. I answered them all in better than a soon. And basically I said there's essentially 3 main reasons that someone would hold PolyCUB or buy PolyCUB a year from now. And I broke that down as you can earn long-term yield on PolyCUB, which is a scarce asset. So imagine holding a scarce asset where you can earn yield. So think of it like holding like a Bitcoin type of asset in terms of scarcity and earning some sort of yield on that, breaking out to maybe 30 to 50% APY for the long run. So that's reason number 1, earn yield on a scarce asset. Number 2 is leverage that scarce asset for collateralized loans. So, what is, one of the driving factors for selling an asset is you sell an asset so that you can either buy another asset or buy something in real life or whatever. Essentially you sell that asset for liquidity. So, creating demand for not selling PolyCUB or holding PolyCUB long-term is essentially being able to leverage that for a collateralized loan, which if you go more in depth on how that all works, essentially that's generating more yield for the protocol and liquidity, because the protocol liquidity can stack yield from those collateralized loans, which we can obviously dive more into. And then the third reason is hold it as a percentage of your portfolio to maximize the yield you're earning on kingdoms. So very similar to like Neil was saying about the curve stake. That would be like the third reason is if you've got $100,000 in kingdoms and you want to optimize the yield that you're earning there. The idea is that you would have to have a percentage of your portfolio as X PolyCUB in order to earn the full yield offered by kingdoms.
those are good reasons.
Yeah. So those are basically the top three reasons why you would buy and hold PolyCUB.
I was just looking at the holders of X PolyCUB. I'm no longer number 2. It's very sad. I'm in the top 10 still.
Where do you see that again?
If you go to the contract view on, or the token view on Polygon scan of the X PolyCUB contract, then you can see holders.
I think I've avoided looking because I don't want to see how far down I am. I just I have 1.59% of the pool.
Okay.
My
You're doing
goal
all
is
right.
my goal is to stay above 1%.
Yeah. Yeah. 1% is a good number to be, a significant player in any particular thing. I've been wondering this about SPS lately, because that's going to inflate up to 3 billion. Like 1% is a lot. Right now I'm at like 0.2% or something like that. Not sure I'm going to get there on that one, but 1% of anything. Imagine you had 1% of Bitcoin, back in 2011 or something.
That would be awesome.
Obviously, the successful things are the ones that make you wish you had done more. Like Rune's been flying the last couple days.
Rune has been mooning.
Yeah, so I actually sold a small portion of my Rune. And
How dare you?
I wish I had gone back, and when Prof K was telling me about it was it summer of 2020 or something? And I bought some then, and it was just sad. It was $500 or something.
I mean, hell, even just buying it on this last, move, it was bouncing off of 350.
Yeah.
3 times, looking like things were going to get ugly. And I didn't add any 350. I I don't know, I gotta look at the chart. It'll refresh my memory, but I had it after it sold off a bunch and it was still relatively high compared to 350. But that's, that ad is up 100% at this point because what's it like 12 now?
I was just looking, it's 12:31.
But yeah, later today, I'm gonna do a little review and I might actually book some Rune also.
Yeah, it was good. Supposedly there's new UIs and stuff coming.
Nice.
Yeah, Rune
I
is
don't know, I guess
now number 39 on the market cap rankings. I think it got all the way down to like 89 at some point. So
Yeah, during during the 3 months it was offline entirely.
yeah. So
which is amazing that, you have something like that go down and it doesn't just pretty much make your project, DOA.
It's a testament to their tokenomics that
And their community.
yeah, because so many people, well, not so many, but the large holders were locked up through their black hole approach, and then the small holders, they still had faith in the the cross chain native asset vision, which is working out. And they just added Terra and UST, so things are fine. The thing I can't wait for is either Haven or Monero. That'll be exciting stuff.
yeah. Thorchain is a game changer. Been saying it since 40 cents.
Yeah. So speaking of, Cal, you've got millions of room. So when are we getting our pool? They raised the caps recently.
They did.
Basically add to of Terra.
Yeah, they raised the caps very significantly. From I don't remember what it was. I mean, it was probably like 25 million, and now it's at 500 million is the max amount of Rune. So they just mooned the caps like they mooned the price. It's actually, is UST trading at 1.14? That's interesting. Yeah, 14% premium. Anyways, the
Shorted.
The wrapped Leo pool is going to be in the Sooniverse on Thorchain, and a big thing that we're doing right now is, so the kind of roadmap for that is obviously we need to finish some work on the Leo Bridge UI for BSC to Polygon, and basically when we've got that bridge working smoothly, we'll be deploying wrapped Leo onto Thorchain. And then what's going to happen with that is that Leo Bridges UI will get extended to Thorchain as well. So now, obviously, with the Luna and the UST integrations, it's getting very interesting to see that when Wrap Leo is on there, you'll be able to basically route to any of these currencies. So, when the cat is at a 10x convention, he'll be able to tell people, here, you just send your USDC on Leo Dex, and you can route it out and buy basically buy Leo with USDC. Native from Coinbase. So
That'll be so huge.
Yeah, and the way we're building the Leo Bridge UI from scratch right now, and the way that it's going to work, it's actually going to be a whole new version of Leo Dex, where kind of the Dex, the whole concept of the Leo Dex UI is going to be changed, and basically the homepage of it is going to be focused around swapping through Leo Bridge. Which is going to make it super easy, where you can just literally just send in USDC and paste your output address, and then you just send USDC in and output whatever you want, and it's literally that easy, and it's all happening through smart contracts on chain, so you can essentially watch those trades go through.
Yeah, I was just looking at the UST pool on Rune, and it is at $1.14, but all the transactions are showing refunds. So I think there's something wrong with the pool.
Yeah, I did hear something about a chain halt for Luna. Yeah, Luna is having a chain halt. So that's potentially, we'll see a drop in the Rune price, and then we can pick up more.
Yeah. So yeah, then it's just then it's just people unable to ARB if Luna is or Terra is properly halted. That's also excited to do some ARB there, but I'm sure everybody else will beat me to it because the bots are queuing up as we speak. I'm only angry at the bots because I don't have them. So if I knew how to code, I would. Because you know the what is that app that they have, that wallet called? It's a Terra Station, Moon Station. I don't know what that's. It works really well, and you know it's got a Chrome or Chromium plugin that you can just bridge straight in. It's very easy. Crypto Lemon just took out a 10 million loan to short it. Yeah, very sad. Not going to work.
If only.
Flash loan pay back in the same block. I wonder if you could make a flash loan work on an actual Rune transaction.
Probably could. I'm sure someone will figure it out.
Because I mean, they were doing the ETH side exploits, but that was just on the ETH side. It didn't flow through into other things. Yeah. Interesting stuff, though. So yeah, that'd be super exciting if we get Leo bridged up through the ERC20 side with Thorchain or FlowSwap, I guess. So there have been I've seen in Discord people still having problems with Leo Bridge. What's going on there? What's the status?
Well, so some people are having problems with wrapping, or at least they were, which is different than Leo Bridge. So you know, P-Leo wrapping is you know, just the wrapping process. But then Leo Bridge is actually working fully on the back end. You know, you can interact directly with a smart contract, and you can use Leo Bridge to go from BSC to Polygon.
Doesn't it use wrapping though?
It does utilize the wrapping, yeah. But the people that are having issues are just having issues with wrapping. And I think there's just about 3 people left that had issues with it, but yeah.
Is that I mean, can you tell us what the issue was, and was it fixed, or
yeah,
is it an ongoing thing?
Yeah, so the issues that they were having were with the Polygon blocks. Obviously Polygon works a little bit differently than like Binance Smart Chain in terms of block times and you know, not necessarily outages, but kind of like I guess you can classify everything as a node issue, but it's basically a node issue with Polygon. But yeah, we basically added a little delay in the wrapping, and now it's all good. So I have not seen, I've been watching for failed wraps, and I have not seen one over the last like 72 hours at least.
That's good to hear.
But the majority of wraps, like 99.9% of wraps, have no issues. It's just those few edge cases that we had to work on.
Okay. How are we coming along in terms of like liquidity displays, so people don't try to send too much?
Yeah, that's all being built into the new LeoDex UI. So I'll probably start talking about the new LeoDex UI in the next maybe couple of weeks, and basically what we're doing there. But we're essentially building a brand new LeoDex, kind of like how we did for Hive Stats. We built a brand new Hive Stats UI from scratch. We're essentially doing the same with LeoDex. So we're building a brand new LeoDex UI from scratch, which is obviously going to have a lot of Leo Bridge components and Thorchain components. It's going to be very heavily focused on Leo Bridge and what we're working on there.
All right. So I think we're all caught up on questions. Let's see, chatter. Just looking at the other places. Twitter's still a giant mess. No tracking anything. But okay. Yeah, so we've transitioned for just a few minutes here, and obviously Bitcoin is up to, what is it, 47 47,390. We had a nice big green candle over the last I don't know, couple days. And what do you see? What do you see that portending for the market?
I'll let Mitch take that one first.
So
It's his department.
I'm busy about I mean, I got lucky, so to speak, and Bitcoin kind of did what my assumption was, but I'm busy shilling in Discord.
Oh, there we go.
I want to be clear, I am no way affiliated with this. All I did was provide a logo to this whatever for filler and said, here you go, have at it, make some stuff available. So everything is, you can buy it from them, they fulfill it, all that good stuff. I am not involved, so don't hit up the cat for swag. I am not affiliated.
Love it. Just need a hat. But yeah, so Kat, you had said in the past, what were the ranges? It was 35 to 45 were the levels?
Yeah, we've been stuck in the 35 to 45-ish area for like 2 months or so. And I was just like, until we break one of those levels, there's really nothing to talk about. So, you know, while I was away, which seems to be the theme, Bitcoin finally broke out, which sucks because I was hoping to get some more Bitcoin before that happened, especially since some of said Bitcoin got converted into PolyCUB and needed to be bought back. So that sort of backfired on me. But I guess in the end, I got more action on PolyCUB platform. So,
Oh yeah, for sure.
but yeah, so I did. I think my post. I did a LeoFinance post yesterday. I think. What a quick review. I mean, it wasn't anything too in depth, but I just talked about the break and the levels that we're looking at, the next two upside levels, and then obviously the fact that it's hitting its head on the 200-day moving average right now, which I don't really give too much credence to with crypto. I feel like the 200-day moving average on the daily chart really comes into play way less often than it does actually, do something. So anyway, I dropped the post into the AMA. So yeah, I mean, really now it's just, okay, if we get a pullback or some profit taking, do we hold 45? Do we hold that now potential demand zone after it was resistance for so long? And then on the upside, it's just like, all right, what happens when we get to the next levels? I think it was like 53 or something like that was that last clear top. And then there's another one at 50. I don't know. I gotta look. What is it? Yeah, we got a clear reversal at the 51,000 area. And then after that, there's a ton of old price action at 53 and change. So that's what I'm looking at for next upsides is 51 or 53. But we'll see. I mean, we've seen consolidations at this 47, 48 level several other times over the last 6 months. And again, it just happened to hit the 200-day. RSI is on the high side right now. So profit taking would not surprise me. And as long as we hold, 45 on that potential profit taking, then I think that confirms the breakout for sure. So things are looking more bullish than they were a month ago.
So Cal, let me ask you, are we back to bull mode?
Bull mode?
Yeah.
I think sentiment definitely is back in bull mode. I don't really know where we're at crypto market wise. I think I've obviously been pretty head down on more developing for stuff. But I think what's interesting about what we're seeing in the crypto markets right now is that the buying pressure is a lot different than it used to be. So the narrative is very heavily focused on institutional buying, and obviously now with Do Kwon buying billions of dollars worth of Bitcoin, there's a lot of focus on this idea lately that a lot of the buying pressure of Bitcoin is going to be either institutional or it's going to be protocol level buying. So if anyone doesn't know, this is maybe a good little news piece to cover. Do Kwon, basically the leader of Terra and UST, is the co-founder, is basically buying Bitcoin with the UST treasury. So drop a little link in chat, but essentially what he's doing is he's taking the UST treasury, which has recently been kind of hit with some FUD about essentially that UST is provably not backed, and it's not like they're even trying to be backed by dollars, but people basically gave them a lot of shit for not being backed by dollars with the UST token. They're instead of backing it by dollars, they have a more protocol level sustainability mechanic built in. So when you mint one UST, you burn one Luna, and you can also do the reverse, which is how basically it evens its price out. You can destroy one UST to get $1 worth of Terra worth of Luna. So it's kind of this interesting mechanism that kind of feeds back into itself. But then a lot of people basically questioned the backing of the treasury and everything like that. So their organization is funnily named Luna Foundation Guard, which is LFG, and basically their plans are to basically acquire $3 billion worth of Bitcoin. And if you look longer term, they want to build like a $10 billion fund that backs UST. So I guess there's a couple interesting things to this. There's a couple of people who are basically speaking out against what they're doing and saying that it adds even more blow up risk to the UST token. The fact that they're adding some sort of treasury reserve of Bitcoin. Because basically when the Bitcoin price goes down, usage of stable coins goes down, attention on crypto goes down, and people are saying it causes cascading potential failure. Other people look at it similar to how they looked at MicroStrategy, which is that it's a bet on the future of Bitcoin and digital currencies as a whole. And if the Terra treasury holds all this Bitcoin and crypto continues to grow, then it's just going to get exponentially more valuable. So I don't know. I think it's a cool strategy. I think essentially PolyCUB is a miniature version of that, where the protocol owned liquidity owns a bunch of Bitcoin. Obviously, it's not only Bitcoin; it's Bitcoin and stable coins and Ethereum. But I do think this treasury strategy of holding digital assets, whether it's stable coins or Bitcoin or Ethereum, is kind of the future of both protocols and institutions. So I don't know what you guys think about Do Kwon and everything that's happening right now.
Yeah, I mean, it's certainly interesting. I've been confused as to the strategy, and I haven't done the research to really dive into it deeply. But UST is an algo stablecoin, right? It's the whole thing was based on the conversion. So
Right.
What does the treasury of Bitcoin add to it? I don't see the mechanism, but maybe they've added something to not on that.
Yeah, I don't think it really adds much. It's just kind of the nice to have type of thing.
Yeah, it's just
Kind of similar
psychological.
kind of similar to PolyCUB protocol liquidity, where the protocol liquidity technically kind of backs PolyCUB, as in you have that risk-free value. But at the same time, there's no mechanism to convert PolyCUB back into the protocol liquidity and take $1 worth of PolyCUB out of the liquidity. So I think that's pretty much what UST is doing.
I disagree there, just because. So when the protocol owned liquidity starts buying PolyCUB from the market, that is a feedback mechanism.
True.
So that,
but I guess there's no redemption mechanism.
Yeah, there's no redemption, but over time it does translate value back to the outside the protocol. So there's, as far as I'm aware, with the Bitcoin backing of UST, there's no mechanism like that. And I could be wrong about that. I don't know. As far as I'm aware. So yeah, but I mean, backing just for psychological purposes, I mean, maybe it has value, but not to me.
I only saw a little bit about this. Like, I think, forget what someone posted, might have been like a Twitter thread, and then I was digging through it. But I guess people are just like, from what I understood, it's just like, all right, you're using Bitcoin as your treasury, and Bitcoin's a volatile asset, and people are just like, this sounds like a recipe for disaster.
Well, those are people who have no faith in the future of crypto.
Yeah, and well, that's the thing. I'm just like, okay, I get it. Well, it's just that it's the mindset, it's the fundamental shift of, you know, we're used to a world where, you know, a treasury is backed by, you know, $1. It's like it's guaranteed this is $1. And it's like Bitcoin's not guaranteed to be any price. It could be higher, it could be lower. And I guess that creates uncertainty or volatility. But, you know, it's just that it's not the norm now. It goes against the norm. So that's why people are going to be, you know, worried or skeptical. You know, 10, 20 years from now, people may be more comfortable with that than they are with something backed by the US dollar. So in the end, it all goes down to just, what is that? I can't think of the word I'm looking for, but just, you know, I don't want to say wisdom of the crowd, but just, you know, the way the masses think what is considered normal and what is considered not normal. And that changes because shit, 100 years ago, 100 plus years ago, is normal to trade gold and silver for products. And you know, right when fiat first came out, people were like, what the F is this? Piece of paper? So we're in a paradigm shifting time. They're always going on, whether it's just within industry or within economies or within just world economy. And crypto certainly creating a paradigm shift.
That is for sure. Now, I saw some people arguing on Twitter this morning about, you know, putting gold certificates on blockchain, tying it into crypto.
I think I think there's a company that already does that.
There's a couple, yeah.
Yeah.
And the Bitcoin maxi that I was looking at was saying, it's like, well, you know, it's worthless because there's still a trust function that you have to have between the mint or the vault or whoever and the blockchain, which is true. I don't know if that makes it worthless, but you know,
it just makes it more efficient for tracking and you know what I mean? Like it's not resolving a problem outside of just making it way more efficient when it comes to, you know, like chain of title and custody and all that stuff. That's all. Yeah. Like it's basically just an improved database.
Well, yeah.
Like that's the value it adds. But yeah, it doesn't, like, you still are reliant on, I guess, a third party or whatever, a custodian, you know, being fair and honest.
Which historically has not been a great bet.
No, but historically, I don't know how we're going to get completely away from that. Like, I understand, like, you know, DAOs and things like that kind of promote the fact that it gets rid of that aspect. But I don't know. No matter how much technology improves, I still think there'll be industries and aspects where you're still somewhat relying on the, you know, integrity of a service provider.
Yeah, I mean there are. I think we talked about this about DAOs and stuff in the past, but you know, for the things that are code based, I think DAOs are great. You know, if there was a PolyCUB DAO and you could vote on the emission schedule and that was an automatic programmatic change, then I think that's a great use case. But when you start getting into, like, the DAO should vote for this other person to go do a thing, then I think they break down entirely, just because they could just say no, you know, and then it's not any different than having any other organization with people in it, and, you know, having to navigate decision making and actually getting people to follow through on things. So yeah, I'm not one of those who thinks DAOs fixes all human organization.
Indeed. Um, I got a boogie in 5 minutes, so I don't know if we're looking to do a roundup of what was discussed, or if Cal's got any other info he wants to share out.
So Cal, when are all the soons, and when is everybody going to be rich?
Every answer to every question is available readily in the Sooniverse. So you just have to go out and find it.
What we need, forget LeoFinance swag. We need Sooniverse and calendar swag.
Yeah.
Like living in the Sooniverse.
Living in the Sooniverse, and then put a little Leo logo somewhere.
Exactly.
Yeah, I think, I was really excited to read, just as kind of like a wrap up. I was really excited to read Taskmaster's post yesterday. I don't remember if I dropped it in chat or not. But his post about basically the emissions rate of PolyCUB and basically why he thinks the plan, or basically the schematic of the way that PolyCUB is designed will actually play out in the long run. And obviously I agree with that, what he's talking about. So, having that combination of scarcity and utility is really what PolyCUB is all about. So, I think we're still in this kind of first inning of PolyCUB, and I think what happens over the coming months is what is going to be kind of the driving indicators of PolyCUB's future, which is all about sustainable yield. So that's the whole mission. And I think once people start seeing the protocol and liquidity pages and the bonding pages and all the mechanics that we've basically been building, like collateralized lending, I think the shift is going to be quick, kind of like Rune, right? Rune was beaten and battered in the market after their hack. I don't remember how long ago that was, like 7 or 8 months ago. And then now it's obviously a quick rise back to where they were. So I think we're going to see something kind of interesting play out with PolyCUB, where it's going to be that quick turnaround when people start to realize the mechanics of PolyCUB, and obviously when that emissions rate is lower. Right now that emissions rate is super high, so there's a ton of PolyCUB entering the market every single day, and that next one is in just a couple of days. So that's I think in 3 or 4 days it's going to be a big turning point, but we'll see how that plays out.
Yeah, so it's the emissions changes are based on Polygon blocks, and so it's not exactly time, but it's around Fridays, right?
Friday, Saturday, yeah.
My BTC has a good ending question. Goals for the POL 1 week after bonding.
Goals for the POL. It's kind of hard to say. I mean, obviously it's going to depend a lot on market dynamics. I don't know. I would like to say, it should hit $250,000 or more in terms of what's been bonded into the protocol. So that would be new funds added to the protocol, and liquidity through bonding would likely be well over $250,000 in within a few days of it launching. So we'll kind of see. Cool. Yeah, I think longer term, I think the goal of the protocol and liquidity is to be over 2 million. That's a lot of the projections I've got are to have it over 2 million long term. So obviously that starts to get very interesting when you consider that the protocol and liquidity is earning yield on that 2 million, and then also it's able to basically synthetically stack yield through the collateralized lending, so that the yield that the treasury is earning from that 2 million is going to be disproportionately above what can be earned from just staking. So obviously we're gonna have to start diving into all those mechanics in posts and stuff to make it all make sense. But it's gonna be cool to see. And then obviously with PolyCUB's market cap sitting at just above 2 million right now, if the protocol owned liquidity was 2 million right now, that would be literally anybody could buy PolyCUB at the current price, and you would theoretically not be able to lose on it. So I think this is where some of those risk-free metrics start to come into play, the risk-free value. And obviously we'll see that play out in the coming months.
All right. Now I know Mitch just got to jump, so we'll wrap it up here.
Yep.
Thanks everybody for coming out. Next one is the 5th of April.
Sweet.
Can't believe March is already in the books.
Yeah, it's crazy.
Q1 is gone.
Yep.
Crazy.
And I'm not rich. And I'm not crypto rich. Sad face.
All right, guys. I'm gonna sign off as well.
All
Got,
right.
some lunch to have and kids to play with.
Yep. Thanks, everybody. See you next
We'll
week.
see you next week.
Later.
See ya.